اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين سيدنا ومولانا بالقاسم مصطفى محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. وصلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة. أما بعد، قال الله العظيم في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن أريد إلا الإصلاح ما استطعت، ما توفيقي إلا بالله، عليه توكلت وإليه أنيب. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Dear brothers and sisters, once again, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Wa adamullah ajurna wa ajurakum. Ibn Sahabina Abi Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam. Yesterday we talked about a unique interaction with one of the Imams. Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam. One man, he came and he talked with him and he asked him what the meaning of knowledge was. So that was yesterday's topic. The knowledge is what? Knowledge is nur that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us. That was the topic of yesterday. Inshallah, I want to pursue this. And there was another thing and another point that this man he raised when he was with Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq. So, again, this man, for those of you who were not here, he's a 94-year-old man. He goes just to meet Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq to gain knowledge. And the way he goes is pure, is mukhlas, is sincere. He doesn't learn for any other reason. He doesn't want to do riya. He has no motive. He just wants to learn purely to get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So now, when this man, he reaches, he knocks on the door, Imam, he finally opens the second time, and he allows him in. The first time he rejected him. The second time he allows him in. And then they sit for a while, and then they talk. So what does he say? What does the Imam say? Imam says, Ijlis ghafarallahu lak. Sit down. And then for a moment there, they're just sitting. And Imam, he has his head down. And then he raises his head and he says, Abu Man, what's your kunya? And then he says, Ana Aba Abdullah. So this man, on one Basri, his kunya is what? Aba Abdullah. And then Imam Ja'far Sadiq says, Thabbat Allahu kunyatik. May Allah affirm your kunya. And then he says, وَوَفَّقَكَ يَا أَبَا عَبْدِ اللَّهِ. And then he says, may Allah give you tawfiq. So this is the topic of today. What is the meaning of tawfiq? In Arabic, you guys know the meaning of tawfiq. They have it in Farsi, they have it in Urdu. But in English, they don't have the translation of tawfiq. What is tawfiq exactly? I don't think English does any justice of what that means. So now, if we come to tawfiq, what is the word? Like we say in Arabic, Allah yuwafqin, or Allah yuwafqik. In Farsi they say muwaffaq bashir. In Urdu they say same thing. So Allah give you tawfiq. What is tawfiq? It comes from wafaqa. Now we look at the Quran. What does tawfiq firstly mean? In Surah An-Nisa it says, وَإِنْ خِفْتُمْ شِقَاقَ بَيْنَهُمَا فَبَعَثُوا حَكَمًا مِنْ أَهْلِهَا وَحَكَمًا مِنْ أَهْلِهِ وَحَكَمًا مِنْ أَهْلِهَا. So basically when two people get into an argument, it's basically a man and a wife. When a man and a wife, they get into an argument, what does it say in the Quran? When a husband and a wife appoint an arbitrary on the man's side and appoint one for the woman. They have two representatives. And then if they want to do islah, then what does Allah do? He does yuwaffiq Allah. If they have the good niyyah, they want to come together, Allah brings tawfiq. So tawfiq is what? The best translation you get is tawfiq is to bring things together. So now the Islamic meaning of tawfiq is, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving you tawfiq, it means He's bringing your effort and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's grace together, and He gives you the opportunity to do good. The example is what? The first example I give is Salatul Layl. You know, for example, we want to do Salatul Layl. It's said in the hadith that someone who wants to do Salatul Layl but he can't, it's because of the sins that he's done in the day. So because of the sins that we do, we get too tired, we get lazy, and we can't do Salatul Layl. Or maybe Salatul Fajr. We know Salatul Fajr is wajib, but because maybe someone has a lot of sins, he is not able to wake up for Salatul Fajr. The example I want to give is a time of Sayyidah Zainab and Imam Sajjad, and that was of Salatul Ghufayla. Yazid, La'natullahi alayhi, he asked Imam Sajjad and he asked Lady Zainab, he said, for the killing that I did for your father and your brother, Abu Abdullah Hussein, can I ever be forgiven for what I did? So Lady Zainab, she says, no, you can't be forgiven, you can never be forgiven. But Imam Sajjad, he says, if you commit yourself to praying Salat al-Ghufayla for the rest of your life, every single day, between Maghrib and Isha, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may give you maghfirah. Now this is a contradiction. Lady Zainab says, no, you can't be forgiven. Imam Sajjad said, yes, if you do this amal, you will be forgiven. Now is there a contradiction between the two? No. Why? It's because Lady Zainab knew that a person like Yazid will never have the tawfiq from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to do Salatul Ghufayla. He will never have a tawfiq. He's a sinner. He drinks. He does so many wrong things. But that's the meaning of tawfiq. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when you do good deeds, He gives you the tawfiq to do more. Please say salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. So I want to give some examples of how we can get tawfiq. The first thing, the example I want to give is actually Khwaja Nasiruddin al-Tusi. He's a teacher of Allah Mahalli. Allah Mahalli is a very big alim. So he's the teacher of him. He says tawfiq is divine grace. ما يقرب إلى الطاعة ويبعد عن المعصية. Tawfiq is something, it makes it easy for you to do good things and it makes it hard for you to do bad things. Now, for example, there's many people who want to make a hospital and maybe they just don't get a chance to do so. There's one example of a doctor. His name is Adib Rizvi. He's in Pakistan. He's a very big nephrologist, and the thing about him is that he does things purely for, the people. He doesn't want anything for himself. And he made a hospital in the city of Karachi. He made a hospital in another city, and he made another hospital in another city. And the treatment that people get for that is free. It's nothing that he gets anything. He has no money for it. It's only for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And because he does this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him tawfiq that he is able to make more and more hospitals. So this is one thing, is that when you have the good niyyah. So there's two ways that we can get tawfiq. We want to be able to get this tawfiq from Allah. The first way I kind of mentioned with this doctor is just an example, is charity. الَّذِينَ يُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةَ وَيُؤْتُونَ الزَّكَاةَ. There's people, what does it say? There's so much emphasis on giving charity. No, when Hazrat Musa, I don't know if you know the story, the elders do, maybe the kids, do they know the story of Musa? Musa alayhi salam, Moses, was banished from Egypt. He was banished from the leadership of Fir'aun. So then he goes to Madain. He's a fugitive, he has nothing. He doesn't have shoes, he just has the clothes on his back. He has nothing at all. And what he sees that there is people, they're getting water from a well. There are shepherds getting water, and then he sees two women who are waiting. So what does Musa alayhi salam do? He goes, he helps them get water. And now this is very important. He helps them get water, and then Shu'aib calls him to his place. So because he helped them get water, he did one act of charity, and what did he get? He spent 10 years with Nabi Shu'aib. 10 years he spent with Nabi Shu'aib. And he also married his daughter. Now Now imagine just one act of charity he did, and that gave him the connection to a Rasul, to a Nabi, to Shu'aib. And that was very important in his spiritual development. So now, sometimes you might think, what did I do? If I do one good thing, like sometimes you see that you get admission into a nice school, you get a good job, you get a raise. It's maybe because you helped someone back in the day. You did some act of charity, you did some sadaqah. Everything that you do, it has an effect. And if you do acts of charity, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will help you in your affairs as well. So the first thing you do, and the act of charity is not always money. It doesn't have to be money. If your friend needs help in something, and you're an expert, you know how to do it, you help them. If you are good with electricity, and you're with the electrician, your friend needs some help in his home, you can help him out. That is your sadaqah. That is your charity. You help with what you can do. That is the first thing. Please say salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The second thing, and it's also the same thing I mentioned yesterday, is your intention, is your niyyah. You see a lot of celebrities and millionaires. They give a lot to charity. They give millions and millions and millions in charity. But are they doing it purely for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or are they doing it for their own agenda, their own publicity? There's a lot of YouTubers nowadays. They'll make a video and they say, oh, we give this person money, and the people are crying, they get some money and everything. What are they doing it for? It's publicity. It's not for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're showing it to everyone. That's riyah. You're showing it to everybody. The niyyah is not to show it to other people. The niyyah is only for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's one thing. Now, how do the Ahlul Bayt give charity? We know the example. وَيُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ مِسْكِينًا وَيَتِيمًا وَأَسِيرًا. This is Ahlul Bayt. When they give it out of the love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they don't ask for any reward or any thanks. They don't want any thanks from you. They don't want any thanks from anyone. They only want Allah's pleasure. So this is the example of pure intention. And the last thing I want to raise, the last point I want to raise, is the same ayah that I read in Surah Al-Hud, ayah number 88. Shu'aib, his intention was what? He says, and this is very important because it matches with Imam al-Hussein. He says, "In uridu illa al-islah mastata'tu." When they ask him, why do you want to guide us? He says, I don't want anything. I don't want anything for myself. I'm only doing it for islah. I'm only doing it for your correction. I only want to rectify you. I want to fix your mistakes. I want to fix the society. I'm only doing it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, this is the same. He has no ill intentions. He only has good intentions. Now, the revolution of Aba Abdullah al-Hussein. What was his intention? We should be clear. If somebody asks us, as we are the Shia, we are the lovers of Ahlul Bayt, we are the representatives of the Ahlul Bayt. They ask us, why did Imam Hussein go against the government? What was his reason? He wanted power? Was it a power play between two people? No, Imam Hussein himself in history repeatedly, he says what? In the letter to Muhammad bin Hanafiya, إِنِّي لَمْ أَخْرُجْ آشرا ولا بطرا ولا مفسدا ولا ظالما وإنما خرجت لطلب الإصلاح في أمة جدي أريد أن آمر بالمعروف وأنهى عن المنكر. He says, I don't want to rebel. I don't want to seek any corruption. In fact, I want to take away corruption. I want to do the favor. I want to do the islah for the nation of my grandfather. The nation, the time of Yazid, there was people that were praying, and then there was people that were drinking. The leader himself was a drunkard. He's not fit to be the ruler or the face of Islam. Everybody knew that. But then the image of Islam was distorted. People were praying, people were doing Quran, people were doing Salah, people were doing Siyam, but the image of Islam was distorted because they were also doing all the other things. So he wanted to, there was so much disruption in society that he wanted to fix. That is Imam al-Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam. Now, when we look at this concept of tawfiq, I mentioned in a couple lectures ago, Imam Hussein, he met with Bishr ibn Khalid. He met with Farazdaq. He met with Abdullah ibn Umar. He met with Ubaydullah ibn Abbas. He met with a lot of people on his way to Karbala, or on his way to Kufa basically, where he stopped at Karbala. A lot of those people, they did not join the message of Hussein. You know, there's one person, I just want to give one example. There's one person, he said, he met Imam at a place close to Karbala. And then he said to him, he said, I need to have, Ya Abu Abdullah, my crops are not going. I have crops, the water is not good. And I recently heard this in a majlis. And then I read it in a book by Nidar Munfarid. So, in that he says, my farmlands are dry, we don't have anything. I don't have any crop. Imam Hussein, it says he takes water and then he gives that water to his crop. And that fixes his crop. And now the water is clean. Now his farmlands are going to go. Now Imam Hussein, he says, now he saw the mu'jiza of Abu Abdullah. This is in history, by the way. Imam Hussein didn't show mu'jiza everywhere, but he showed mu'jiza in some occasions. He made the crops good. Now what did this man say? When he sees that his crops are good, he says, you know, Abu Abdullah, now my crops are good, I have to harvest them. Now my crops are good. I'm going to have to manage this business. I can't leave this business. The crops are now finally ripe. So then he did not join Abu Abdullah Hussein. Imam Hussein, that's all he said. That's all he needed to hear. And he says, Ma'as salam, and he goes. Even though he sees the purity of Abu Abdullah. So these people, Bishr ibn Ghalib, they did not have the tawfiq. But people like Hur ibn Yazid al-Riyahi, they had tawfiq. People like Zuhair ibn Qayn. Zuhair ibn Qayn. Imam met him on his way. He didn't even want to meet him. But his wife told him, go and meet Abu Abdullah Hussein. When he goes and he meets Abu Abdullah Hussein, he comes back because he's taken. Hussein is what? If our hearts are clean, then it says, Inna Hussein misbahul huda wa safinatun najar. When we come into these majalis, if we have a clean heart, Imam Hussein, he lights our heart with hubb ahl al-bayt. He lights our heart with hubb Allah, with the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hussein is that medium that takes us towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, today we want to talk about this one personality. This one personality, he's the only personality of all of the people, Hazrat Abbas, Hazrat Qasim, all of these personalities, Imam al-Hussein, he stopped them from going to the battlefield. But there's one personality that Imam al-Hussein, he gave the permission right away, and that is Ali al-Akbar. That is his son. Sallallahu alayhi ya Rasulullah. Sallallahu alayhi ya يا ليتنا فيا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي فنفوز والله فوزا عظيما. But Ali al-Akbar, he asked his father for permission to go into battle. Imam al-Hussein, he doesn't reject him. He has tears in his eyes and he looks up into the sky. As Ali al-Akbar is putting on his armor, he raises his hands to the heavens. He calls out, قال اللهم اشهد على هؤلاء القوم فقد برز إليهم غلام أشبه الناس خلقا وخلقا ومنطقا برسولك محمد. Oh Allah, I bear witness for these people. I'm sending this young man into battle. He looks like Rasulullah. His conduct is like Rasulullah. But Ali al-Akbar, he gets ready. He gets ready and he goes. And then he goes towards the battlefield. It is said he goes with such pride and such glory. The riwayah says as he draws his sword and he goes into battle, he says, he recites a rajaz, a poem. قال أنا علي بن الحسين بن علي نحن وبيت الله أولى بالنبي والله لا يحكم فينا ابن الداعي. And then he fights courageously. He fights courageously. This is the Shabi of Rasulullah. He kills a large number of enemies. And then but one time he comes back to Hussein. Why does he come back to Hussein? Maybe Hussein made a dua, but he comes back to Hussein. He says, قَالَ أَبَا الْعَطَشُ قَتَلَنِي. The thirst is killing me, oh my father. وَثِقْلُ الْحَدِيدِ أَجْهَدَنِي. Oh my father, Ya Abata, the armor is heavy and I'm thirsty. Can you give me some water? Is there any water? أَتَقَوَّ بِهَا عَلَى الْأَعْدَاءِ. Is there any water that will make me strong for my enemies? Wasaba Abdullah. It says, look, he shows his tongue to his son. His son feels the tongue of Hussein. It is so dry. He says, oh my father, your tongue is drier than mine even. But Hussein, he gives a ring. He says, hold this ring into your mouth and maybe you will get some moisture. But then Hussein, he sends his son back. His son goes back and fights the enemy. He fights even though he's tired. But one coward comes, as they always do. One of the coward comes and he strikes him on the head. رحم الله من نادى وعليا وسيدا ومظلوما. And then he calls out to his father. He calls out to his father. He says, Ya Abata, Ya Abata. He says, I see someone, Ya Abata. هذا جدي رسول الله قد سقاني. This is my grandfather. He has come and given me water. But Hussein, he reaches his son. He puts his cheek on the cheek of Ali. And he says, ولدي علي على الدنيا بعدك العفا. What is there to live for after you? But he takes the body of his son and he takes it back to the tents. And Zainab Salamullahi, she sees the body of Ali. She cries out, Wa Sayyida, Wa Aliya, Wa Husayna. على لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين. سيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. Please raise your hands in a short dua. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم ادخل على أهل القبور السرور. اللهم اغني كل فقير. اللهم اشبع كل جائع. اللهم اكسو كل عريان. اللهم اقض دين كل مدين. اللهم فرج عن كل مكروب. اللهم رد كل غريب. اللهم فك كل أسير. اللهم اصنع كل فاسد من أمور المسلمين. اللهم اشفي كل مريض. اللهم سد فقرنا بغناك. اللهم غير سوء حالنا بحسن حالك. اللهم اقضي عنا الدين واغننا من الفقر إنك على كل شيء قدير. رحم الله ما يقرأ الفاتحة مسبوقة بالصلاة على محمد وآل محمد.